Today I wanted to create a wool farm, but I didn't want to be basic. I didn't want to create some random build to throw over the top of it and forget about the farm itself. I decided to make my wool farm into a nightclub, the Disco Bar nightclub. Now before I could begin building, I needed to clear out some of the terrain. Initially, I wanted to build across this hill, on top of it, around it, everything like that. But whenever I started to think about it a little bit harder, I knew that cities aren't really built like that. And I was going to have a hard time trying to get this build to work on the slants of a hill. Now, after I got the hill cleaned up, I wanted to create some outlines for some surrounding builds. Now, we're not going to get to these today, but I just kind of wanted to get a feel for the area and what I could fit in this small space. And since I already had all the materials on hand, I kind of just started building. Now I needed a sizable hole for this. I was able to fit 19 sheep in each of the different rows, which means one for each color and double for some of the ones that I feel like I'm going to use way more often. And I'm really counting on this farm being productive, so I had to create a lot of item filters. Since my initial idea was to try and incorporate the sheep somehow into this disco club, I felt like renaming all of them to be Jeb underscore so that they were all rainbow was a perfect way to bring it into this disco aesthetic idea I had. Right now, that is pretty much every component of the farm. The sheep were being sheared, the wool's being sent to the item filters. Now we just need an interior, which I'm not really in the mood for right now. So I think what we're gonna do is a magical scar 360, and now we have a fully finished interior with all the workings of the farm that you can still hear underneath, as well as a surprise appearance from a new guest, our first guest of the club actually. And yes, this was supposed to be tailored after a nightclub, and I think we achieved that pretty well. The farm is a little bit loud, and initially I wanted to incorporate the farm into this build as much as I could. I wanted this to be the dance floor where you come and you can see all the sheep underneath. Every time one of these main ones in the center area go off, like you just saw right there, the redstone lamp lights up and we get a little bit of interactivity with the farm. Now we had this guest that just randomly appeared. I think it spawned because of the iron farm right there, but I wanted to try and tame this cat and maybe stick it up onto the DJ booth, and maybe we can have a DJ cat up here spinning some discs and giving these sheep a good time with the music. Now, this is going to be a very subjective build because personally, I don't go to clubs. I can drink and everything, but I'm not that kind of person. I don't go out to clubs. So this could be an accurate looking club. This could be way off from what clubs actually look like, but I took my understanding of what a club would look like and tried my best with this interior, and I think it turned out really well. I tried to incorporate also some color theory, trying to get reds and some greens together, as well as some purples as like that third triad color, and I think it came out really well. I might just be saying that because mangrove is my favorite block, and red's kind of a really nice color, and purple is also my favorite color, so I might be a little bit biased, but personally, I think the colors go really well together. We have some nice pops here and there with a lot lighter of a purple, and also these sea lanterns that you see everywhere. There's some here, and then behind all of these mangrove trapdoors and up on the ceiling. I think it provides a very nice contrast, a very good blend of all the different colors here, and it came out really well. Let's go through the tour. So whenever you first walk through the two sets of double doors, you come into the main area. Now, clubs have a couple of different sections, but usually it's just one big room, and that was kind of the idea behind this area. We have, as you can see, a patio going across, maybe not a patio, but a walkway going across the entire top, but this part here is the main dance floor with the DJ booth and the bar right here connected to it. There are no seats at the bar, just because when we want to keep patrons in and out of this area since it's so narrow, and there's some tables upstairs that they can go and take their drinks to. And we also don't want drinks on the dance floor, so, trying to discourage that as much as we can. But if we head upstairs and ignore the little doors that we have right now, we'll get back to those. But this is the upper walkway, and it's very simple, very narrow. It's mostly just for people to come and drink, or if they want to get away from the dance floor, they just come up here and hang out and talk and do whatever they want up here. But back down here, we're going to go over to this staff-only door, and this is just how you get back to behind the bar. And it's a very narrow, very cramped space. We didn't really have much room for details, and I didn't go too heavy with the details. We went with some pretty simple shelves, some drawers, a little keg with a spout on it, and a fridge over here, and some shelving that flips up and down every time you open the fridge. Over here is the VIP lounge, and this is actually where we get our wool from the farm. And you can see it's a very simple chest wall. It's got everything color coordinated, and we have a full row of the farm that we can see underneath. So that way, some of our hard work that we put into making this farm doesn't go to waste, and we can still see all these sheepies down here. I don't have any plans for this wool yet, but I do have an idea that I might try and work on in the next month or so, but no promises there because so far we haven't gotten too much wool, and I think for that project that I have in mind, we'll need a ton of wool. But very basic interior. It took me a while to kind of lay out and get all the colors right. I think the colors might have been the thing that I struggled with most here, but we landed on something really nice. I tried something different and I learned a lot. So that's really all I can ask from this build. Like I said earlier, I will try and incorporate more of the crimson and the dark prismarine in builds future, but for now, we're going to close these doors and we're going to move on to what else we're doing in this episode. So we are not going to be working on any of the other outlines. The only thing that I want to do in today's episode to finish it off is to create a build right here. I want to create a long, narrow, kind of just a facade for another building that's going to be snug in this little area. And the purpose of this building is going to be to access the redstone of the sheep farm. I don't think we'll really need to access this area very often, maybe once every couple hundred days just to refill the shears, but it's been going for like 20 or 30 days so far, and I don't think we're gonna have to come back here for a while still. But mostly I just want to fix this sight line, and so you can't see all that redstone disgustingness back there, and I want to try and fix this area up a little bit. So eventually we're going to turn this into a sort of pixel art plaza. I had a sign here that I disappeared and got rid of, but right here we want to have a redstone shop, and at the very top of the redstone shop I want to have a big redstone dust. And so if you stand right here, you'll be able to see the pixel art sheep, the pixel art iron golem, and then the pixel art redstone dust. And that's why this will be our redstone plaza. And so we might work on that later. We'll see how long this build takes us. I want to do a little bit of freehanding. I'm kind of tired of building creative. And yeah, we'll just kind of go from there and see what else we can get done today. Now, I do kind of want to walk through this build a little bit, just because we didn't really walk through too much of the design process on this build. So first off, I'm going to fill out this face. We brought it out 1 block so that it gives it a little bit more depth and dimension in this alleyway. And we might even shrink it down to about 2 block wide here, and then we'll wrap around somewhere to these buildings in the future. But these ones the outlines are going to change, and we're gonna move on to something a little bit different. But we're gonna try and cram maybe another building right here, and then a walkway out over to these buildings on this side. So for now, we're gonna stick it out just the 1 block, and I want to build up an entire face of the build. And then we'll come through with some blocks and create some outlines for what I want the build to look like. And right now we are about even with the top of this build, and I want it to stick out higher than this build. I want it to kind of be a bisection between these two builds. So maybe about here. It's about halfway in between the 2 different heights of these buildings. And that way it won't stick out as being too high, and it won't blend in as being the same height as the other build right next to it. And that looks really ugly right now, but we're going to make it look so much better. Oh my goodness, there's phantoms. But we do need to close up that gap a little bit, so I need some extra materials. No. Stop it. That works. So now what I want to do is divide this build into a couple of horizontal registers. Probably 2, maybe 3. We'll see at the very top. But if you want to take a look back at this build, we have technically 3 vertical registers. So we have 1 right here, which provides us that foundation look. And oh my goodness, I hate phantoms so much. Why are there so many of them? Okay, hang on, let me sleep. Yeah, so this is the foundation level, and then we have the main section here, which is our middle register, our middle horizontal layer. And then at the very top, we have technically a 3rd section. You don't really have to see it as a 3rd section, but right here is another section of the build with the sign and these little, these things. I don't know what they're called. So really there are 3 layers to this build, and we can either do 2 layers here, divide it maybe a 1/3 of the way up, and then the upper 2/3 we leave as 1 register. But I think we could do the same thing here where we have a foundation level that maybe is a little bit higher than that block right there, maybe 2 to 3 higher than this foundation, and then the big layer, and then we do a very small layer on the top of it. But we also don't want to take away too much attention from these two builds. But everything is a bit grayscale in this area, so I really wouldn't mind adding a little bit of color. Gotta think a little bit about this one. You know, like we were talking about on the interior of the club, maybe we bring in some dark greens for this build. And all we have to do, really, it wouldn't be too difficult. I'm cooking something in my mind. Okay, my idea is a light sandstone and a little bit darker foundation area, and then the green as the main upper tier, the upper 2/3 of the build. And then we can also bring in these very light blues to help with some highlight areas, maybe the top area. I don't really know yet, but some light blues just to throw it in there and have a little bit of extra variation along with the green and the sandstone. So we're going to start with the foundation area, and I'm just going to go up to about here, right there. And we're going to build up a foundation. And yeah, I know, I just put that wall in, but it's a visual thing. I just need to see it. Okay, that is the foundation. That's going to be our door. Maybe actually we could do a door that you have to walk into and up a step off of the sidewalk. That could be fun. So this would be a step block. Ah, yes, I do have one like that. And then we'd have a floor right there. So now that could work, but we need a little bit of extra something. So to divide the two tiers, we're going to come in with some mangrove logs. And the reason that we're going with mangrove logs is because they have a slight green texture to them. They're a little bit dirty, so I don't know if they'll stay, but the idea is that they have some green in them, a little bit of red to go with the red that's in the surrounding area, and then also blend well with the greens that we're going to be including here. And now we'll see if it works. We're going to replace this stone with some green terracotta, and then we'll come back through with our detail blocks and add in a little bit of texturing and maybe some windows, maybe a sign. I don't really know what this shop should be. I was thinking maybe like a little bookstore or something, but we got to have a little bit of a purpose or lore behind this area. And that is ugly as sin. Okay. But it is all right. We will work with it and we will figure out a way to make it look pretty. So I think we're going to come in with some tough bricks on the corners and do the same thing we did here with some foundational blocks, trying to give it a reinforced feel, but not quite the same way that we did here. We're going to have one every couple of blocks. So maybe sitting right there, we'll put a tough block down. It would be really nice if we had the tough polished block that's coming out in the next update, but unfortunately that is still a couple months away. Okay, we're getting there. I think what we need to do now is replace some of the tough with some mossy stone bricks. And this will give it a slight weathered feel in some of the areas, but we're not going to go overboard with the weathering because we don't really need to. This building isn't an alley, so it's not like there's a lot of wind getting into it, not a lot of natural elements aside from what comes down from the top over the other buildings. But just here and there, we'll add a little bit of that weather. It was getting hard to build and talk, so I just started building, adding a window and some texturing and details to the foundation. I decided I didn't like the window and opted for a balcony instead, bringing back some of the crimson and a little overhang. Then came texturing on the main face of the build, something that helped it a lot. I tried emulating what I had on the roof of the club and added some more details. Now, I am so happy that I decided to add this in here. We started out with a very flat face, a very gross looking building, and we turned it around. We made this look so much better. All we did was add a little bit of texturing, a couple of little details, and it looks so good. I think choosing to do a green here really goes nicely with the reds in the area. We have a little pop of color at the bottom right there, but you don't really notice it too much. The blue kind of sticks out just a little bit, and so does that purple. But really, it just kind of draws our eyes up to this point here, which is the perfect midpoint between these two builds. So if you're looking at it from any angle in between the two, you're kind of drawn either to that build or the other build or that little point in the middle. And it works. I didn't really intend for that to be a focal point of the build, but it works and it looks really good. We didn't incorporate the dark prismarine in a way that I thought we would, but we still got some prismarine in the build. We got the greens, and all in all, I think it was pretty successful. Now, I am not used to building in this style. I don't know really what my build style is, but it's definitely not these kinds of builds, this kind of cityscape aesthetic. I want to try and expand that style of my toolkit with this project that we have that we laid out earlier in today's episode. I want this entire area to be like what we're building here. Ooh, that is nasty. Okay, we're not looking at that. Anyway, I want this area to be like what we have expanded in this area, this beginning parts of our pixel art plaza, and I want to take this style all across the town and expand that toolkit. If you have any advice, if you're really good at building in this style, please help me, give me some tips, help me out in the comments, maybe join the Discord. We have a great discussion in there. It's all about sharing our build, sharing our ideas, and trying to help each other become a better builder. So if you guys have any advice that you want to share, please leave it in the comments or come to the Discord and leave it there. Now, the next thing that we need to do is transform this little plaza area. So I want to try and wrap my head around what this area is going to look like. I think we need to bring the terrain up to about this level or maybe this block here. It doesn't help that these two are on different elevations, but we could use that to our advantage. We have this block here, and then this step here, and then maybe we'll build the redstone block on this block here. So they're only a block apart, not too far away from each other, but just far enough that they can have some variation to their own. So I think what I'm going to do first is build up the terrain a little bit, maybe build up this wall, and then we'll go from there. But also, I guess first I need to clean up this shulker monster. And that is it. Very small, but a little effort goes a long way. Now we have this plaza in place. There's a beautiful fountain right in the center of it, and it's just begging for us to add this build here, which we are not doing today. We're going to do that in some future episode, probably not the next one either, but the layout is there. I'm excited for whatever we get up to with that shop. It's also supposed to be like a villager shop, so it'll be another way we can knock off some of our villager stuff that we wanted to do in this area. But a very quick tour of this little plaza. We have a small retaining wall on this side, that side, and this side to keep people from falling off the edge. Not that it's a really steep cliff, but you know, something a little more realistic in this area for this little overlook that we get of the rest of the base. Now over here, we have that bigger retaining wall, a lot of grass, some flowers here and there, a little flower pot here to commemorate all the iron golems in this factory that are being harvested for their iron, some graffiti along the wall, some glow lichen everywhere, and just a little bit of nature here and there. Whoops. This design here is what we used on the outside of our horse house, the chateau, whatever. I don't think it's actually a chateau, but the pattern that we used with the packed mud, with the mud bricks, with the granite, and this is the slightly weathered copper variant. A very nice texture mixing, and it's also matches the red tones that we have going on in these two different builds, and eventually in this third build right here. It's a little crazy what just a little bit of effort can do, but now that we have that plaza in place, it looks way more settled into its environment, and this build no longer sticks out like a complete sore thumb. Now, of course, we did extend the path just a little bit further in that direction, but we're not going to do too much back there today because we're just going to save that for future plans and future episodes that we do in that area. But that means for today, we pretty much have everything we wanted to get done achieved. We put in a really cool building, tried to learn some new interior design tricks, built a pretty good wool farm, and even tried to expand our building style. This was a pretty packed episode. We did lots of building today. We learned a lot, and we tried to expand our style as much as we could. We played around with colors, new blocks, and just had a lot of fun with the builds today. But with that now, I'm going to have to call it an end for today. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.